Welcome Soapboxx Nation. What's going on? This is a special adaptation of the Soapboxx Podcast, but we are going to break down the movie, the controversial movie. It's been a wild 24 hours of the movie In the Heights, which is written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, and I am joined with some heavy hitters and some voices that you're going to hear more on the Soapboxx Podcast and the new adaptation, basically spinoff called Take Two. So without further ado, I want to introduce first, you see me on her show, so please understand, we have host Holly Noon. How you doing, Holly?
Hey, TJ, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for hopping on board. And of course, we got our man, he's a friend of the show. We have Bad Tyleem Robinson. What's going on? He's with us to break it all down, man.
Man, what's up, man? My brother, man. You might. Everybody might not know out there, but me and TJ, we shared the womb. He doesn't even know, but we was there together, man. High fiving it.
Yes, absolutely. Listen, this movie In the Heights has been, highly anticipated. From highly anticipated to controversial. So we're going to go ahead and break down everything. So before we do that, before we spit fire on the mic, just want to let y'all know, spoiler warning, all right? For all those who are there right now, you want to pause the video, go see the movie, and then check back with us. Spoiler warning alert. So with that being said, tell us, what's your, Holly, what was your first reaction to the movie In Your Heights? What's the first glance that you thought when you first saw the movie?
No, I really liked the movie, and I love the music, the storytelling, very reminiscent of Hamilton, but I love that it was just more relatable, relevant to today and the issues going on. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I've seen it twice already on HBO Max. So yeah. Yeah, it's a win for me.
Word. Yes, it was also, so that was the weird thing about it, because people are like, they didn't know where to go watch the movie, whether it's in theaters, HBO Max, bootleg. Well, we don't encourage that, but I'm just saying, like, either way, Bad Time. What was your first when you first saw the movie? What was your reaction in totality?
Well, let me say this. I normally don't like musicals at all. I just want to preface that, but I actually enjoyed this one, man. Like this, from just the level of detail in the lyrics, telling the complete story on beat. That's it. For anybody who raps and has ever rapped and freestyle, that ain't easy. That's not an easy task. So, just off first glance, I'm keep it a little shorter. I loved it. Loved the movie.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it as well. Like when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, this is our generation's West Side Story." Immediately, I was like, "Oh, they're gonna push this to the moon. This movie's gonna get a whole bunch of Oscars." And the first thing that popped out to me was the cinematography of it, like how colorful it was and how vibrant it was, and how they really made not just the culture come alive of the Latino community that's in Washington Heights in New York, but also just the way musically, right? When you talk about the music, not just the soundtrack or the lyrics, but the instruments that were in the soundtrack and the score of the movie really put you in the feel like, wait, this is a different type of film filled with rich history and rich culture. And it really did a good job of showcasing the heritage of the Latino community. So I was like, but when I saw the colors and the graphic, I was like, okay, they don't put some money into this. This has a budget where they're really going for the gusto. And I think as we move into the conversations about like representations or the different the themes of the movie, showing where you see a majority, I would say Black and brown cast, and seeing that where you didn't really see that many white folks like in the cast at all. It was like a couple, So to see that, I was like, okay, this is dope. And the fact that, like you were saying, they mixed the hip hop into a musical, which for those who aren't familiar with Hamilton, that's Lin-Manuel Miranda's style. that was like, okay, this is going to be an epic movie.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I would agree with you. I would totally agree with you, and I would even add a little bit to that, to the fact that even though it's a musical, the thing that made it such a good movie was at times you forgot that it was a musical, even though there was constant music. So that whoever hasn't seen it, let me not confuse it. There's constant music, but the acting and the storyline and how they depict themselves really speaks to the level of detail again that the director went into to make this more of a movie rather than feeling like you went to a Broadway show and just watched an adaptation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Holly, you're familiar with Hamilton. Can you tell us a little bit about Lin-Manuel Miranda and like his journey? Because he actually wrote In the Heights before he actually wrote Hamilton. But for those who aren't really familiar with what Hamilton was all about, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so Hamilton is a Broadway play that was became very well known for like the hip hop being incorporated into the musical, as well as the fact that the cast was so diverse. So you had typically a movie that was about white men, white politicians being played by actors and actresses of different races. And so it was like this big thing. And so when you actually start watching In the Heights, it's very reminiscent of certain things. Like, for example, like when they started like at the beginning of the movie, when he's like spraying the hose, and then you see the lead actor like jingle his keys, and everything just kind of is in sync. It's like, oh wow, maybe if I really listened more closely in my life, maybe it would be like a musical playing in the background with all the noises like blending together.
Yes.
And I think he does that so beautifully. Like that's why I say you like kind of like you were saying, Ty, like you don't even realize it's a musical at times because it just flows all together. Like the music and the acting and the storytelling, it really does. Like I'm like, wait, they're about to break out into song, and then they break out of it and start talking and then break back into song.
Look, when he was rapping, it makes you want to kind of, I haven't seen stuff like that since Chris Brown's like, hey, baby girl, let us see you. I was like, this is gonna be the new wave of how you start hollering at girls. Like if a dude came up to you, Holly was like started doing some In the Heights, and you're gonna be like, okay, I see.
Well, the funny thing about what you just said, is this the new wave? It seems like musicals have been for a very long time trying to trying to slide into that little box of moviedom. Like they've been trying to infiltrate and try and with a very strong lack of success in most cases. But this felt different. It felt different. It felt like this might be the wave as far as like maybe if you want inclusion, do you a movie about your culture that we didn't know, like if like we had Crazy Rich Asians, Crazy Rich Asians, which I don't think that was a musical. Was it a musical? I don't know. I didn't see it.
I believe it was, because I actually didn't get to see Crazy Rich Asians, but now I will after I seen.
Now I feel like I need to go. I need to go watch it and make sure, just to get a little bit of behind the scenes peek at the culture. So
are there what are some of the themes that stood out to you as the movie went on? Like when you looked at it, you're like, okay, this is important. What were some of the messages that stood out to you, Holly?
So the first main message I think was just how the Latinx community in general like embrace their culture, their heritage, and like when Abuela was like, it's in the details, and just how everybody always incorporated like where they grew up or where they came from. That was always a part of like the story, and how people were like, you find out a lot of people in the story are like, this is their first generation here in America,
Correct.
And so I think that's like, but that's so relative, not just to the Latinx community, but many communities, in America where, so it's just, I just thought that was one theme that stood out to me, was just the embrace of culture. Everyone had a flag, the music, the food. So that was one theme that stood out to me.
You've actually said something that I have been trying to get more educated, and maybe you in your professional field know more about that. When you refer to the Latino community as the Latinx community, for those who don't know what that is or why you do that, like, because I know there are some Latinos that are for that, and then there are some that like don't like it at all. So what's the gist of it, or the history behind, or the purpose of that?
So it's a kind of a way to identify the Latin community without kind of like feminizing, or like a way to identify everybody in that community without basically making it like Latina, Latino, and also to kind of embrace those that are transgender and don't identify maybe as they, them. So you just say Latinx. And you can see it in other, there's other terms, I can't think of some at this moment, but Latinx is just a way to kind of identify everybody that makes up the community. Because, you know, if you say Latino community, some might say, well, why does it have to be a masculine pronoun? You know, there's that argument. If, say, in the movie there's a group of women, you would say those are Latinas, but it's just easier sometimes to say Latinx community, and it incorporates everybody. So.
Okay, well, I
do every day.
I appreciate you breaking that down. Because some of the older generation, and I think that is also another element of the theme, that when we talk about the character of Abuela, is how different the generations, even from Mark Anthony playing the uncle to Anthony Ramos's Kevin Usnavi, right? He talked about how things used to be. There was the generational gap, how things used to be to how they are now. Because I know there's some the older generation of the Latino community or Latinx community that are offended by the term Latinx, but then they're the young millennials or the progressives or Gen X. They're like, yo, Gen Z. They're like, yo, let's move forward and progress. Bad Ty, what are some of the other elements or themes that you saw that really stood out to you when you viewed the movie?
Well, to me, the most important theme of the movie was the fact of gentrification, and how you know, a lot of the people who had been in that community for so very long were almost forced out, in a sense, by buyouts, you know. But I think the lady who owned, which her name was Daphne, so Daniela, who was the owner of the
beauty shop. Yeah,
she was, and you know, in the beginning, you're seeing that she is moving. She is like eventually moving to a different location because she sold her shop. And the same thing goes for Kevin Rosario, which was the owner of the corner lot that did the communications and told everybody where, you know, I guess the bus was it the buses that he was like they were that they were
I think it's the cabs. They were doing cab.
Okay, so the cab company. I know it was some type of transportation.
Control.
Yeah, there was some type of transportation. So, but what I saw was, you know, a lot of the individuals in the movie were talking about their neighborhood and how, you know, they built it up and everything like that, but now they feel like they're strangers in their own neighborhood. Like they're starting to, you know, people are moving in and prices are going up and everything like that. I thought that was like one of the major themes of the Heights movie that I was able to relate to.
Yeah, gentrification was definitely one of the major points of In the Heights. Even when you look at the conversation with Vanessa, who is the main character, and how she wanted to live uptown, but she was looked and perceived a certain way because she was a Latina woman. So when she went to where she couldn't afford her, she needed a co-signer, and she needed all these different things. And she said that the lady who was the realtor looked at her immediately from how she was dressed, and the fact that she had to change her attire from what she was wearing in the Heights from the beauty shop to when she went to go look at an apartment. And then when the lady, even when she changed her appearance to try to assimilate into the dominant white society culture, the lady still took one look at her, right, and then decided that she wasn't qualified, but then welcomed the white couple that came into the screen with with open arms. So that's one of the also the people moving out, but then also the people who do want to leave the community, where they feel like they're actually stuck and they're trapped into a box where they feel like you can't branch out. And I think that was also a central theme when it comes to Nina and her journey when it comes to leaving Stanford and coming back into the community, how everybody counted on this one person. And that speaks to the responsibility that we have as, you know, as minorities, Black people or people in a Latinx community. Like, you have such a responsibility that when you walk out of your door, out of your house, it's not you don't just represent yourself. You have to represent an entire community, and that weight is something that predominantly white people in dominant white society don't have to have that weight, where it's like an all or nothing. And so I do like how she talked about when she went into the dorm, right? And I don't want to spoil too much for those who are watching, even though we said spoiler one. When she went into the dorm, and because of her pigmentation, because of that she was a Latina, she was automatically viewed as a thief, which basically got into the stereotypes. Go ahead, Holly. Yes on that? Yeah.
So I was going to say another theme that I noticed in the movie was everybody had a dream, that they were trying to like make happen, or, had to switch it up, or, so I thought that was really inspiring in different ways. And I mean, we're not going to spoil like the whole movie.
Yeah.
But the main character, how you sometimes, what you really think your dream is, and then just having to realize, no, I can still accomplish that, but, just have to make a few changes or adjustments.
I noticed that as well. And I think that theme of having a dream, and then when we see what Usnavi's cousin goes through, and we have the conversation about undocumented workers or students, and this about protesting, right? Because he was a young undocumented activist. So you have that theme of like, this is also a plight within a plight. So there are people within that community that are going through gentrification, that are trying to live their dream, that feel trapped. And then there are people who looking at the community as a safe haven, but even within the safe haven, they're still going through their own plight to even be seen or to feel like they are accepted in that community as a whole. Real quick, what was your favorite scene of the movie? As we ponder, the deep questions. That's how you know a movie's good. When you're like, yo, what was the favorite scene? And you're like, you're trying to piece it together.
Go ahead, Holly. If you got yours together, go ahead.
My favorite scene is when he was about to go to the airport, and they're like, "Hey, come to the bodega," and they go, and he just is like, all the effort that everybody put in. Painting, the fashions.
Yes.
and he it made me tear up. Just.
You know what? I was about to ask. I was surprised that you didn't we didn't talk about the romance. Like, we didn't, this is actually a romantic type of movie. Like, come on. Like, they got Holly tearing up a little bit. Like, Holly, I was
not tearing up about the romantic part. I was tearing up because you could tell they wanted him to stay. So they.
Oh, okay.
All of them.
I got a little thug choked up. It's okay. I was like, that little puff of the chest, like, okay.
But that was my favorite. So their love story was my favorite, though. I didn't really like Nina and Benny. Is that his name?
Benny, yeah, Benny.
Yeah, Benny. It was. I liked that one, but it just wasn't as dramatic.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you wanted that tug and pull
Yeah,
type.
pulling, chasing. Yeah.
She was like, Nina was too cooperative. She just, he was there. She's like, no, you gotta chase me a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, chase me for 2 hours.
Been away from her boo for a while now. I mean, she was she left them from what their conversation is. She left him to go to school. He couldn't follow her, and he had to stay behind and work with her dad. And so you constantly hearing all the stories of, oh, Nina's doing this, is going on, Nina's and you're not really, and then so it was more like she felt bad. You could tell she wanted to be with him, he wanted to be with her, but the situation was what it was. For me, I don't know if it was necessarily my favorite part, but it was one of the most powerful parts of the movie for me as a father. Was the moment that Nina realized, like everything that her dad, had been trying to do and why he was doing it. When she came in there and had that conversation with him, and he looked at her and he said, you know what? At this moment, I'm seeing you as a woman, you know what I mean? Like, growing up and everything that I tried to do as a father to make you into this beautiful human being has culminated right here in front of my eyes. And I can't be more proud, more excited as a father. And just, everything that I did, I know it all made sense at that moment. So as a father, because when he first talked to her, she rebelled. She figured only reason you're doing this is because you want to live vicariously through me and accomplish everything. And in essence, yes, this is true, but it's for so much bigger than what you could ever fathom as far as why it is that I want this success for you and how I feel like we'll all win by you winning. And that to me, that was a touching moment as a father, because you always want that for your kids to be successful and you to be the reason behind, their success. So that was a powerful moment for me in that movie.
Absolutely. One of my favorite scenes was the club scene, right? The club scene was by far, the club scene was dope. And the reason it was dope is because it was a throwback, a little Easter egg, throwback to a movie, which this movie was influenced by, which was West Side Story. So if you watch the movie In the Heights, where you had the women on one side, the men on the other side, and they were dancing and like, love the music. And the fact that I like how Benny and Usnavi's conversation in the club, as far as you like Vanessa, but she's dancing with other dudes, and how dudes can be kind of prideful. Like, yo, she could go ahead and dance with anybody. And I think at one point, Bennett was like, yo, you worried about these dudes? He's like, I fight everybody in here. I'm not worried about nobody. Like, that's that, that insecurity. When I saw that, I was like, yo, that's how guys with their homeboys, we're not vulnerable like that. We'll act like things just roll off our shoulder. But the fact that the dancing and the choreography, not just in that scene, but the entire movie, I thought was top notch and phenomenal. How everything came together, and the fact that they threw little elements of West Side Story speaks to the heritage of how important it is to kind of pay homage to people from the past, whether it's the ladies who were on Broadway, to the culture, to also to passing of the torch, so to speak, from West Side, the first version of West Side Story, because they're going to come out with the new version of West Side Story, which I'm sure they're pretty nervous now to what this is, to what
high bar.
Yeah, things have changed. And we also talk about how they had a theme of trying to be as inclusive as possible, but without crowbarring it, right? So we talked about the LGBT, there's an LGBTQ element into the community. Like, we had someone who was trans that was in the salon, right? And it was like normal, like nobody said anything. It was just a regular character. And then you had someone, then you have the women in the salon. If y'all look closely, there's it's a little, they had a relationship. There was actually a relationship, but it was never something that they addressed. So it was kind of like, by not addressing it, it was, to me, it was kind of like a nod to, this should be so normal that it's not something that is just put on Front Street or display, so to speak. Am I getting that right, Holly?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's just, like you said, it's kind of to show that in many communities, right? It's made up of different people. And so, but I didn't think they didn't highlight any particular story or place emphasis on it. So, yeah, I think it just made it seem like it was normal, and like everybody knows somebody in their neighborhood or barrio, as they were like that, or, you know, so I think that he was like, I don't know. I just thought they did a really good job of just representation in terms of like all the different generations in the movie, baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, as well as just also when it came to the Latinx community, they had they really did represent, I guess, that diaspora, I guess you could say, of the different countries and their history. So I thought that was that was accurate. But I know in the news
within 24 hours.
Right.
Well, let's talk about that, because within 24 hours of the movie, as we said, In the Heights was highly anticipated. Since 2008 is when this, I believe, it came on Broadway, and it was actually award winning. Like, it won a lot of awards on Broadway. I think it won Tony Award. So it was endorsed by Dwayne Johnson. It was endorsed by Oprah Winfrey, The Rock. So they had heavy hitters. So it seemed like when you look at films, whenever there's like a big marketing campaign, it seemed like it was on that Oscar big box office worthy train of like, hey, we're going to push this thing to the mainstream, because even within the times right now where we're talking about immigration and undocumented workers, this seemed like a movie that they were going to push to the forefront and had a lot of steam. But the steam came to a screeching halt when there was an interview conducted by the publication The Root, and there was controversy with some of the casting within In the Heights. And we're going to break down the interview frame by frame, so to speak, but we wanted you to, as an audience, to listen to the director and some of the cast members as they were questioned as to the lack of Afro-Latinos, would it be Afro-Latinx? Afro-Latinx?
Yeah,
I'm going to say Afro-Latinx, and I'm not
Look at you. You're recreating.
Latinx is just gender neutral, but
All right, good. I'm good. All right. I would pass Holly's human resource course. Like, I don't want you go home. You don't know what you're doing. Yeah. All right. So let's break.
Specifically from New York City, it would be remiss of me to not acknowledge the fact that most of your principal actors were light-skinned or white-passing Latinx people. So with that, what are your thoughts on the lack of Black Latinx people represented in your film?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was something we talked about, and I needed to be educated about, of course. In the end, when we were looking at the cast, we tried to get the people who were best for those roles, and that specifically, and we saw a lot of people like Daphne or Dasha. But I hear you on, trying to fill those cast members with darker skin. I think that's a really good conversation to have, something that we should all be talking about.
I didn't realize.
Well, initially, I wanted us to discuss, before we get into some of the cast members, I think the problem, when you first heard about the controversy, Holly, what was your reaction to it? Where you watched it the first time, and then within 24 hours, people were like, colorism, because I'll be honest, because of the amount of extras, I didn't see it like how other people saw it, and I consider myself as woke as they come. So how did you view it?
No, the exact same. I actually had to go back through, and I was like, I think I see Afro, Latinx people in there, but then when they, like you said, kind of said, oh, well, the main actors weren't, then I was like, oh, okay, I can see that critique being valid. you know. But at first, no, I had to see it twice to be like, oh, now I get what they're talking about, you know, because at first I couldn't see it. Same as you, TJ.
Yeah. No, I get it. And we just so happen to have someone who identifies as an Afro-Latino. Bad Tie, did you feel seen in this movie, or did you have a problem with the casting when you first heard about the controversy, or when you saw the movie?
I would be lying if I didn't say that I spoke to it very briefly while watching the movie. Just because the main character, Vanessa, when I first saw her, I was like, is she actually Latino, or Latinx? But my let me get it down quick.
Holly's trying to educate us.
I know. Listen, man. I'm not trying to walk to the office of HR. You know, I don't want that problem. So my thing is, knowing what I know, the spectrum of Latinx people goes from the lightest of light to the darkest of dark. So the idea like that people are getting offended because they, you know, spotlighted, you know, in not so much in the movie, but just in the main characters, that they were on the lighter spectrum of it, and then totally, you know, just discounted all of the other spectrums of color that you saw throughout the movie. And you know, I'm gonna have to say this. They took a whole scene and spotlighted when they were talking about when the scene was when Claudia was singing. Yes. And she was singing, talking about when she first came to the country, when she first got to America, and like the jobs that they were given were that of maids and you know, slaves and people that cleaned your. Those were the jobs that they were kind of showing you when they showed you this the looked like a subway scene almost. Yes,
the subway.
And they were showing all of the spectrums, because at that moment, if you didn't get all, you know, chocolate in that and brown in that subway car, then I don't know what movie you were watching, because they were all there lined up. And then when they came outside of the car, they again showed all of these women. And she was basically saying, you know, like, when we first came to this country, we didn't have rights. We didn't have like they fell into that same group as Black people and any people that were deemed less than. So she spoke to that, and they spoke to that the spectrum of Latinx people. So you can't make everybody happy, and you know, you're always going to have somebody that complains about something because they don't have anything better to do with their time. So I wouldn't put as much weight and validity into the conversations that people are having. This was supposed to be a feel-good movie. This was supposed to be a movie celebrating culture, not tearing down culture. So you know.
So and you spoke to a point that I was making. So me, when I saw the backlash, I put on my political hat, right? And I want to hear, but I put on my political hat to say, and I'm gonna let the cast do a little bit more talking. Was this an actual concern, right? Because I saw even in the store how they covered up the island of Haiti, and that was really offensive. When I look back and I saw that, I was like, oh, that's really offensive. But then, like a nerd, I went back into the carnival scene and I looked at the different flags that were in the scene to see which flags were actually represented. And there's a Haitian flag. There is a Haitian flag. I look for both my parents are Trinidadian. There's a Trinidadian flag. So they did Central America and Latin American flags in the carnival scene. And plus, Benny is actually Jamaican in the movie and was waving a Jamaican flag as well. So when I saw that, I was like, wait. And then I saw that the cast was diverse, but then the main characters weren't. But the main Mina is actually an Afro-Latina, but she's not a dark-skinned Afro-Latina. I was like, are we grabbing or pulling at straws, or is there validity? So I want to listen to more about what the cast was saying on this subject. Oh, hold on. Mr. Producer is that's not. Let me see.
Until making this movie, that I
Trying
didn't
to
really get
figure out how to
to
do this
see
thing.
myself or people that look like
There we
my
go.
siblings that are darker than me on screen, and I didn't realize how much that affected the limitations that I put on myself, being someone who wanted to be an artist and be an actress and, you know, even be in the Latin music industry, being Afro-Latina. I feel so blessed we get to express the diversity that is within the Latinx community in a way that we haven't been able to see on screen, because so many times we're put on screen in one particular way, and since we get so little opportunities, everyone wants to claim that one story because it's all we got.
I think it's important to note though that in the audition process, which was a long audition process, there were a lot of Afro-Latinos there, a lot of darker skinned people. And I think they were looking for just the right people for the roles, for the person.
Okay, real quick. That is like textbook of what you should not say in that situation. I thought, like when she said, hey, I know you guys are upset about the lack of Afro-Latinas, but hey, they were there during the auditions. They chose to pick people of lighter complexion. And it kind of made me not like her character when I watched it the second time after seeing this video, because it was like it seemed very, I don't know, Holly, did it seem very dismissive to you? It seemed like, well, hey, they just picked the best of the best, and I happen to be one of them. And so you mean to tell me that all of the dark Afro-Latinos didn't make the cut because they just weren't talented enough as the lighter skin average? I think she just added more. The interview was bad for the director, but I think she added more gasoline to the fire. What say you?
Our mic.
Your mic.
Oh, she definitely didn't have that PR training. Say how to answer that question properly. And I don't know how young she is, but I think her intent was just to say, like, everybody was given an opportunity, but I just don't think it came off well, because then it's like, well, they chose the best and they just happened to be the lighter, on the lighter end of the spectrum. So yeah. I don't think she was really thinking of it holistically, like really what was being talked about and addressed. I don't even think she was really aware. I think she was just trying to say, like, hey, no, there was a ton of people there. Everybody was represented. They just picked the best of the best. But I don't think she realized, like, yeah, but look, this is what we're critiquing the fact that the people that were picked were like, yeah, I don't think she just realized. I think that's just maybe over time.
And she got to thank her lucky stars, because I saw Anthony Ramos and Vanessa Hudgens was playing her role. And I think I think it was on Broadway or on stage, was actually playing her role. And I think Vanessa Hudgens, who's probably would be in this case the most well-known actress in the film, she's very lucky to have that role herself. So but let's continue with some of the other commentary from the movie.
And we've been able to be in the hair salons and this and that, but like a lead, that's the breakthrough. We want to see Black people in the Heights. We want to see Afro-Panamanians, Black Cubans, Black Dominicans. That's what we want to see, and that's what we were yearning for and hoping for.
I hope that at least that encourages more people to tell more stories and get out there and do it right then.
There is a long history of colorism and pigmentocracy in Latin America. And with that, what would you say to folks who say that in the Heights privileges white passing and light-skinned Latinx people? I
would say that that's a fair conversation to have. I mean, listen, we're not going to get everything right in a movie. We tried our best on all fronts of it. I do think there's something to be said about sharing in experiences, and me never trying to say I know what I'm doing, but to just give room to everybody to speak up about what we're doing at that moment.
And I'll just add, like, this, I hope that this is cracking that glass ceiling, because I do hope to see my brothers and sisters that are darker than me lead these movies.
So the question I want to ask y'all, and I know we're going to get to our ratings, is do you have to be the lead in order for you to feel represented? And I know, Holly, when we had our conversation, we talked about Black Panther. When on your YouTube channel, we discussed this, and that's how we talked about this really when we talked about Loki on the new Blurred Order on your other YouTube channel. Is it the fact that it's the lead? Do we have to be the lead? Because I mean, if we look at it the other way, and I don't know if this is a direct correlation, I don't see too many Latinx people in the Tyler Perry movies. You know, is it the fact that is it that we have to, or is this a case of, hey, don't beg to sit at anybody else's lunch counter, build your own? What do you think, Ty?
I think that it's a case by case basis. Mm-hmm. This movie was, again, to personify the Washington Heights and also to uplift a culture and bring awareness to the fact that people are getting kicked out of Washington Heights and white people are moving in. These are facts. This is actually happening all over New York. There are this is prime real estate that people have been lusting after for a very long time and now have found loopholes to kick people and families out of their communities and move others in. Do I think that every movie has to have a darker, person of color in order to be a good movie? No. And do I think that should be the criteria to have a good movie? Absolutely not. Do we want to be included in a more magnified way? Absolutely. But to tear down each and every movie that doesn't have a darker version of ourselves in it that's irresponsible. That's very irresponsible. If I was to watch this movie and the cast sucked, then I would be right here with you, TJ. Like, there's no way you're going to tell me the casting director couldn't have found one dark-skinned person to act better than that person. But that wasn't the case. They all did a freaking wonderful job. So was I watching it like, oh, I wish they were darker, it would have been better? No. Does our argument continue to be the plight and the fight for our inclusion? Absolutely. But I don't think we should do that at every single movie and break it down like that. There was nothing negative. Like we talked about, there was inclusion for the LGBTQ plus community. They did it in a normalized fashion, which normalizes the situation. When you don't magnify it and make it seem like you're trying to impose it on someone rather than just, this is normal life. Let it just be a normal event. That director did a great job of doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, nobody batted an eye at I don't even know what to call him, her, them. I don't want to get it wrong. But the person that was in that seat, in that scene you're referring to, nobody batted an eye. You know what I'm saying? If anything, my lady was like, "Yo, I think he's off of YouTube." Like, I was like, but, okay, cool. So I think we get caught up in the minuscule things sometimes and try to magnify them and make them more than what they are. And in this case, this was a well-written movie, a well-directed movie, and a well-acted movie by the actors. So applause to them, man.
All right. So I know we're fastly approaching, we're gonna wrap, but I want to ask, and I'm gonna start with you, Holly. We get yes or no. And so the question is, In the Heights, is this an Oscar-worthy movie, or was there an Oscar-worthy performance that you feel like, or do you feel like the latest controversy is going to kind of taint that?
No, I still think it's definitely Oscar worthy. I think it's, at the end of the day, compared to a majority of movies that are out, that the fact that this story is very representative of a Black and brown community in general, I think it will win Oscars, whether it's in the music, the clothing, cinematography, maybe not directing, maybe after this interview. But,
she's like he fucked that up. He's not gonna do that.
Director, but there were some great performances, and I mean, you can't deny that the music was phenomenal. So I think, hopefully, hopefully they get a few.
Bad Tie, you think right now they're saying that the opening box office numbers were not as expected. It got about a little over $11 million at the box office, and I think that has a lot to do with some of the marketing. Do you think that this movie is, tell me your pick. Do you think it's Oscar worthy? And if so, who gave an Oscar worthy performance, do you think, in The Heights?
Well, I just want to say that those box office numbers are skewed because this movie also came out on HBO Max, which is a streaming service. So a lot of people didn't necessarily have to go to the box office, which would change the box office numbers and make it look like it wasn't as successful. Do I think it is Oscar worthy? I'm gonna pose this differently. I think that who said that the Oscars is the end all be all. Like last I checked, there was a bunch of not people from The Heights that judged the Oscars. So I'm just gonna say in the court of public opinion, this to me is worthy. I'll say that in the court of public opinion, we feel as though this could be a classic. Going back as far as like we have Oz or the Wiz, excuse me, we have the Wiz, that is our classic and our homage to our culture, and this it really put the Hispanic and Latinx community on notice that hey, we out here and we're showing off what we're about, and I think they did a very good job of representation, especially for a first time film.
Absolutely. I think real quick, I think Abuela, I think she, out of all the controversy, one thing I saw on social media, universally, everybody liked her performance. I think she was the only person in the film that was, besides Lin-Manuel Miranda, that was played the exact same role on stage, on Broadway, and in the movie adaptation. I think she did a great job singing. I think she did a great job acting. I think if they push her to the forefront, along with the choreography and cinematography, they can get something. But as far as like best movie of the year, I think too much controversy. Oscars, any award show is political anyway. So, but I want to know, final call, what is your rating? And I'm gonna go around the horn. Let's start with you, Miss Holly. What would you rate out of 10? Because we decided we're going to do out of 10 because we don't do fractions on this segment of the podcast. What would you rate this out of 1 out of 10?
I give it an 8. I give it an 8.
An 8?
Yeah, a solid 8. Yeah, a solid 8. So, yeah, it's a great movie. So go check it out.
Absolutely, Bad Tie. What's your rating for In the Heights?
I'm gonna have to go with Holly on this one, man. You can't go wrong with 8. So 8 is a good number, a good solid number. So it's not great, but it's not bad at all. So I'll give it an 8. I'll go with an 8 as well.
You know what? When I first saw this movie, I thought I was gonna give it a I was gonna give it a 9 when I first saw it, but based upon the controversy and some of the imagery and stuff like that, I got to dock you 2 points. So I'm gonna give it a 7.
Good.
I'm gonna give it a 7. Okay. All right. Let's see next week when they do the PR, because they're gonna do a PR blitz. We'll see what they do with it. Maybe it'll get back up there, but I think 8 might be the average for this movie. But it's a solid movie, family-friendly movie, date movie, all that good stuff. So I give it a 7. Bad Tie gives it an 8. Holly gives it a 9. So as we go around the horn, as we wrap up, hey, Holly, Bad Tie, Holly, tell us where the people can find you. Thank you so much for being a part of Soapboxx Nation. on our pilot episode of something that is coming soon when we're talking more about movies and films and stuff like that. So tell them where people can find you and subscribe to your YouTube channel.
Yes, you can find me on YouTube at So Please Understand, as well as Instagram at So Please Understand.
Bad Ty, where can they find you, my man?
Yo, if you look right down there, right up under my chin, it is an at Bad Ty Bricks. Yo, you can also catch me at the Multiverse fan page, YouTube, Wednesdays, 6:30 p.m. sharp. We're never late. And also on Saturdays on the New Blurred Order podcast, you can catch us every Saturday, 9:30 in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm all over the place. But yeah, man. And I just wanted to give a special shout out to Lisa in the comment section, killing it as usual. We love your support, love your energy, love you, and appreciate you always coming through, man, to show love and support. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And as always, Soapboxx Nation, you can find me at Legacy Cold World. That's Legacy Cold World. And subscribe to the Soapboxx, of course, and follow us, Soapboxx Podcast with 2X, Soapboxx Podcast with 2X on all of your social media platforms. I love doing this episode. We got some things in the works. Get used to these too, Soapboxx Nation. You're going to be hearing a lot from them as we break down movies, TV shows, and even some retro throwbacks of some other movies with some different themes. We'll be doing that, and some Disney stuff as well. So we'll get into that as well. So we appreciate you all. Thank you all for joining us, and we are out. Peace.
Tell them what we talk. Tell them what we talking about. Anything. Tell them what we talking about. Anything. Welcome to the Soapboxx. Welcome to the Soapboxx.